All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we return to the summer months and it starts to get warm here in the Bay Area. 49er OTAs just around the corner, training camp to follow, and let's talk a little bit more about the 49er quarterbacks. Now, I just think this story is so interesting. Brock Purdy is two stories. He is a incredible success story nationally, and for whatever reason, he's become this polarizing figure locally. And it's really pretty comical. I mean, he is a great story nationally, but locally, for some reason, this has gone a totally different direction. If you say Brock Purdy nationally, they're like, oh, yeah, you kidding me? Mr. Irrelevant led the 49ers to the NFC Championship game. Looked great in doing so. And it's like, oh, it's nothing but all applause for Brock. But locally, the pushback on Brock Purdy in the season that he had, amazingly, is been, there's as many people seem like they're anti-Brock Purdy as there are pro-Brock Purdy. Let's do a little review here. He was Mr. Irrelevant. He became a very good NFL starting quarterback this year and winds up leading his team into the NFC Championship game. And, there was always doubters along the way. I mean, there were doubters. You could argue the 49ers were doubters. They didn't take him until the 7th round of the draft. So if they had loved him more, they could have drafted him earlier, but they didn't. They drafted him as the Mr. Irrelevant pick, the final pick of the 7th round. So he goes to minicamp. He looked great. He goes to training camp. He looks even better. Then he goes and plays in the preseason, and he was fantastic. It was an eye-opening preseason for sure, and he beats out Nate Sudfeld for a 53-man roster spot after what was an incredibly eye-opening preseason. So then he sits, right? The 49ers have Trey Lance. They have Jimmy Garoppolo back, and Brock Purdy doesn't play basically for months. And then here comes week 13, and he's forced into action. Jimmy G knocked out early in that game against the Dolphins in week 13. And all Brock Purdy did was come off the bench, hadn't played in over 3 months. He faced nothing but 5- and 6-man pressures all afternoon, all kinds of exotic blitzes. He stared it down, and he led the Niners to a 16-point victory over the Dolphins in that game, a game that he didn't even expect to play in. And yet still, there were doubters. Well, how will he fare next week against Tampa Bay when they've got a week to study him? Oh, my God, he's going to fall on his face next week. He didn't. The 49ers won 35-7, 4-touchdown victory. That was week 14. And yet still, there were doubters. Can he win on the road? It's one thing to do it at home. Can he do it in Seattle? They can't beat Seattle. They never win in Seattle. Can Brock Purdy do it on the road? Nobody believed in him. He couldn't do it on the road. Well, then what did he do in week 15? He went and he beat Seattle in Seattle, and he played that game with sore ribs, I believe. And yet still there were doubters. Can he beat a team with a dominant D-line? The Commanders were next. And they had, Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne and Montez Sweat and all these monsters up front. Can he do it against a top-tier defensive line? Well, what did he do? The Niners beat the Commanders by 17 points in week 16. And yet still, there were doubters. Okay, he's led the entire time. He's never won a game from behind. Can he come from behind to win a game? Okay, let's see him down, 10 points in the fourth quarter, and let's see if he can win then. Well, what did he do? Week 17, he led the Niners from down 10 to a win in overtime in Vegas on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders. And yet still there were doubters. It's really an amazing thing. I mean, Purdy played in the preseason, then sat for 3 months, and then led the 49ers to 6 straight wins to end the regular season. But yet still there were doubters. Can he beat Seattle twice? They were up first in the playoffs. Can he win a playoff game? It's one thing to do it in the regular season, but can he beat a team twice? Can he win in the playoffs? And how did he respond? He led them to a 41-23 victory, accounted for 4 touchdowns, 332 passing yards, and they beat up on Seattle. But still there were doubters. It was like, well, can he beat Dallas and their defense? And they got Micah Parsons, and oh my God, Dallas. Niners win 19-12, and they did it largely in the back of 2 long second half drives that were led by Brock Purdy. And then, of course, the Philly game. He gets knocked out by the Eagles 6 plays into the NFC Championship game. And the Niners offense, which at that point had been averaging 33 points a game under Purdy, completely imploded without him. And they lost by 24 points, season over. And I think most people just said, hey, man, wow, that was incredible. An incredible run by Brock Purdy. So amazing. It was such an amazing run that rival GMs around the league, guys like Seattle's John Schneider, Baltimore's Eric DeCosta, both openly and publicly praise Purdy in the lead up to the 2023 draft. And then if that wasn't enough, 14 teams took quarterbacks in the draft. That's the second most since 2013 and why? Because teams were trying to find the next Brock Purdy because it's a copycat league. And it's like, oh my God, they have Brock Purdy. We need to go look for our Brock Purdy. And so 14 quarterbacks get drafted. So it's been an amazing story. Nationally, he's getting the respect inside the football world, coaches, players, executives, owners, great respect for what Purdy's been able to accomplish, what the Niners were able to find in Brock Purdy. A lot of praise for the Niners, a lot of praise for Purdy. Yet locally, some fans and some people have treated all pro Purdy commentary as, or even pro Sam Darnold commentary as anti-Trey Lance. And that's just, I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself, but I'm not anti-Trey Lance and I'm not anti-Sam Darnold. I don't necessarily believe in Sam Darnold, but I can see what the Niners are hoping to catch lightning in the bottle with. They're hoping they can find something in Sam Darnold, and he's going to kind of re-find himself and be that player he was, I guess, at SC and in high school at San Clemente. We'll find out soon enough. But it's gotten very heated as of late with people calling Brock Purdy a dink and dunk quarterback, which is an insult any way you shape it. And it's basically these people are using dink and dunk and cherry picking a stat here and a stat there and saying this stat is so revealing that Purdy's arm is too weak to succeed in the NFL. His arm is too weak to win Super Bowls. His arm is too weak to be a franchise quarterback. I always looked at it one way or another. To me, and the people that I know in the scouting community look at it this way as well. You have to evaluate every quarterback. Does he have requisite arm strength? You either do or you don't. And if you don't, you're a dink and dunk quarterback, and you're basically a lifetime number 2, number 3 practice squad kind of guy. You either can make all the throws and you have requisite arm strength, or you can't make all the throws and you're a dink and dunk guy who's really just, you're a space filler. You're not really anybody's starting quarterback. You're just there until they can find their starting quarterback. Well, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I think Brock Purdy, based on what I've seen, has requisite arm strength. In other words, he can make all the throws necessary to operate an NFL offense. And I don't care what his air yards average says. I watch it with my own 2 eyes. He has requisite arm strength. Now, that leads us into the injury. And the elbow injury makes that arm strength question definitely something to monitor. I'm not going to sit here and say that, that elbow injury won't impact his arm strength and impact his career. It could totally hurt his arm strength and subsequently hurt his career. And he could become a dink and dunk quarterback, but he ain't there yet. And the guy that I saw last year wasn't a dink and dunk quarterback. That guy had requisite arm strength to win in the NFL. Was his arm strength huge? No, but it was requisite arm strength. Now, we're going to find out about the elbow. We're going to find out about the arm strength, but that's to come. That's in August. That's in September. That's in October. It's May. To say that the guy's a dink and dunk guy and to kind of discount him and to put him down and be like, well, it's Shanahan. It's Shanahan's offense and it's CMC. And it's just, first of all, the Niners had CMC the week before Purdy, and Jimmy G led them to a 13-point victory. 13 total points is what the Niners offense produced without Brock Purdy. Purdy averaged closer to 35 a game. And then how quickly we forget that when Brock Purdy stepped onto the field against Miami in December, week 13, that all quarterbacks not named Jimmy Garoppolo under Kyle Shanahan at that point were 9-29. So I love Shanahan. I think his offense is awesome. He's an excellent offensive coach. But Purdy was the difference maker. And I think it's time we all recognize that playing quarterback is really, really hard. And winning games in the NFL is really, really hard. And never discount that. Now, a couple other things that really jumped out about this whole discussion is, multiple Niner teammates have come out in support of Brock Purdy. Eric Armstead said some nice things with Jim Rome the other day. You heard Christian McCaffrey saying some great things about Purdy the other day as well. And yet immediately people are like, well, what do you expect them to say? His teammates are praising Brock Purdy not because they have to, because they want to. I just think it's time for all of us to show some appreciation and respect for, one, how difficult it is to play quarterback, for how hard it is to win in the NFL, and have a little appreciation for what we saw and were treated to, and maybe a little respect by what we saw from Brock Purdy. Now, in my opinion, the 49ers have a franchise quarterback. The only debate, and one that I can't wait to see this summer, and I think all of us want to see it, I suspect the 49ers may have multiple franchise quarterbacks. And we're going to find out more. We're going to find out more about Trey Lance the more he plays. We're going to find out more about Sam Darnold the more he plays, especially in this offense with this surrounding cast. Will he be better here than he was with the Jets and Panthers? I suspect he will be. The Niners may have multiple franchise quarterbacks, but they definitely have one, and his name is Brock Purdy. And I think people need to show a little bit more respect for the success he had, a little bit more respect for how difficult what he has already done is to do. And let's see. And just because somebody's saying, hey, you know what? Brock Purdy was really, really good, doesn't take any shine off of Darnold or Lance, and doesn't impact whether those guys are going to be good or not. I suspect Trey Lance could be very good. I was jacked the day they drafted him. I'm getting painted as the guy who's anti-Trey only because I said that I predicted that I thought, based on what I'd read, the Niners would move Trey Lance. Doesn't seem like that's the case right now. Either way, he still has a huge amount of potential, and we're going to find out this summer. Darnold, and to people that I talk to, they say he's got huge potential too. I'm skeptical. I'll admit it. I'm totally skeptical. I don't necessarily believe or see the greatness of Sam Darnold. But guess what? We got all of August, all of September, probably a good half of October to find out what we have in Trey Lance, what we have in Sam Darnold. But this idea that we need to somehow choose is crazy. And this idea that we need to somehow put down Brock Purdy for having one of the greatest rookie seasons any quarterback in the history of the NFL has ever had, to me, is bizarre and out of place. Anyway, hope you enjoyed our 49er video. Check out Pig and a Pickle. They're in Corte Madera and Emeryville, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And thanks for supporting me and the Krueg Show on YouTube.